Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kamil Kuźmiak, and in today's episode I'm gonna show you something very exciting. We're gonna be taking for a spin my very first ever digital camera. Get ready to get transported back to the early 2000s. Let's get to it. So today I decided to start this brand new series on my channel where we're gonna be checking out what's inside the mystery suitcase, and every time we're gonna be exploring some different vintage technologies. This particular one is very close to my heart because almost 20 years ago that was the very first tool I could use to make videos. Let's check out what's inside mystery suitcase today. Alright, AIPTEK Pocket DV digital camera. At that time it was a cutting-edge technology. I mean, it wasn't a cutting edge, there were so much better cameras from that era. However, for my budget that was really something special. It was around 2004, 2005. It was so much harder back then to get access to any good cameras or anything like that. You had the first phones that were making videos, but the quality was super low. Also, they were very expensive. Me and my friends that introduced me into making videos, first we were using old VHS camera. You had to use tapes to record videos. We didn't have the hardware to capture the video from the camera to the computer and edit in the video editing software. We were connecting two VHS players together, and then we were putting a blank tape into one of the recorders. Little by little we were recording short clips out of one tape to another. Most of the videos we did back then, it was like a parody films, like shootouts and some sort of like parody of action films. Because back in the day, when you had access to any camera, that was your first instinct. There was no social media. Before YouTubers and before TikTokers and before content creators, you had amateur filmmakers. It's very funny actually, because back in the day, it was so special to have access to any camera. Majority of people nowadays, they have iPhone or any other smartphone that shoots at least like 4K 60 frames per second with a decent audio. You can shoot great clips, skate videos, short films, documentaries, YouTube vlogs, whatever you want. You can edit on your phone. The quality that you can get from the phone today is levels of magnitude better than the quality you could achieve with digital camera from back then. So now there is no magic into filming. I think majority of people, when they think about making videos today, they focus on, I want to be an influencer, I want to be a TikTok star, I want to make vlogs, making short funny sketches like memes and stuff. You see less young people that are trying to play cinema. I think cinema is a bit less popular within the younger communities, maybe like Marvel movies and stuff like that in general. But when I was a kid, I was watching movies all the time, sneaking into the living room at night to secretly watch some gangster movies and some action movies I wasn't supposed to, going to the film rental all the time, going to the cinema with my friends whenever I had a chance. Back then, when we had access to any camera, somebody had like a family VHS camera or something like that, our first instinct was to make a parody of a movie. Like, let's take our BB guns, let's dress up into some costumes. Even before like video streaming platforms, there was a lot of like DVD or CDs passed on from person to person with some amateur films, some funny sketches and stuff like that. Nowadays you have YouTube, you have TikTok, you have Instagram. It's a little bit different. It's more aggressive to get attention. Back then it was more of a creative adventure and experimenting and stuff like that. For instance, one of my friends, Michał, his nickname was Marvel, like the Marvel universe. He was the one that introduced me into making videos. That was his great passion. When I was around like 13, 14, I started attending classes. It was some martial arts classes, Aikido to be precise. I met some older colleagues there. Some of them introduced me into skateboarding. I'm not an amazing skateboarder, but I love to do it. I love to skate. One of them introduced me into making videos, and he was very creative. He was doing a lot of like practical special effects. For instance, he filmed like a Lego model of a spaceship. For background, he used like a black paper, and he put a source of light behind the black paper, and he poked holes in that black cardboard. So when he were shining light from behind, he had like a real glowing stars. Then he hanged the spaceship on like a piece of fishing line, moving up and down like it's like flying through the the outer space, and then he filmed the cockpit scene inside of like a very narrow toilet. He was sitting on the toilet with like a joystick, like a game controller, and a goggles and a helmet, and put some red or some blue light bulbs into the lamp on the ceiling. He filmed like a footage of himself piloting the spaceship and cutting away between the wide shot of the model flying through the space with the shot of him in the cockpit. We used to do a lot of stuff like this. Like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it was like a niche hobby. If you were living in a small town, you had a camera, you were known as the local camera person. You know what I mean? Like nowadays, everybody has a camera in the pocket. And because I was also very much passionate about skateboarding, I used to do skate videos. By filming other people doing tricks, I could be very much engaged in the sport without actually being super good at it. I think there is a lot of people in the videography field that are somewhat connected to extreme sports, because filming is a big part of any sport, especially extreme sports, because a skate video is like a finished product of skateboarding. Yeah, but enough chatting about the backstory. Let's focus on this camera. When you film videos, you have like 3 different modes, and it's funny because nowadays when you have a good camera, you need to compromise between slow motion or higher resolution. So for instance, you can shoot 6K 24 frames per second, but if you go down to from 6K to 4K, you can shoot 120 or 60 frames per second, and if you go down to the 1080p HD, you can shoot 240 frames per second, for example. But here with this camera, slow motion is out of the picture, and don't even think about this. You have a choice between pretty bad quality and not even like a full frame rate, or even more horrible quality but like a full 24 frames per second frame rate. So basically the best resolution out of this camera is 640 pixels by 480 pixels, and that gives you 10 frames per second, so you get this super choppy footage like an old silent movie or something. But that's, you know, high resolution 480p. To give you some perspective on the screen, now you can see this is like a 4K resolution, this is like full HD, and that's 640 by 480 VGA resolution. And then you had the Q VGA resolution, which was 320 by 240 pixels, and that would give you 24 frames per second, so you know, cinematic footage, and that was the sweet spot of this camera. And the lowest resolution was 160 by 120 pixels, and that would give you 30 frames per second. You could take still images with it as well. The resolution of the still image was 1280 by 1024 pixels, so it was something around like 720p, but 4:3 aspect ratio. It wasn't good for today's standard, but still images from this camera were so much nicer and sharper and packed with detail than the video. On the other hand, the shutter was so slow, even if you had plenty of light, it was difficult to freeze motion. Everything was a little bit blurry at all times. Dynamic range of this camera is so horrendous. If you have like super contrasty scene, it looks almost like a mask, black versus white posterized effect. If you don't have contrasty scene, it's still pretty bad. All the shadows are completely clipped and all the highlights are always blown out at all times. But also, apart of the very low dynamic range, there is no stabilization at all, so all the handheld footage was super shaky. We didn't have access to any Steadicams, there was no gimbals back then or anything like that, so the distinct feature of videos from that era is the super shaky footage. And this one only has digital zoom, but a lot of cameras from back then, they had very aggressive zooming as well, so shaking and zooming, that's something that's like an iconic look from this era. So what do we have inside? We have the cable, you have this tripod, cutting edge technology. You can even control the angle of the tripod head, and the most important, our main unit. The cool thing about this camera is that you don't have any custom battery. You just need 2 AA batteries. That's like a big benefit, because if you're out of juice and out and about, you can just go to any like corner shop, buy a 4-pack of Duracells, and you're good to go. You have a flip out screen. You can only open and close the screen. You can't flip it out like this, so if you want to film yourself, you can't really see the screen. You have this little mirror here, and you can use the mirror to frame the shot when you want to vlog with it or something. Camera does record audio. It's not the best, but it is possible. You have simple menu, you have your playback, you can record audio, you have a self timer, you have settings. In settings, you can choose the quality of the video. At the moment, I have the camera set to 325 to 200 288 pixels. I don't have it in that highest quality 480p because then it's only 10 frames per second. So if you want to film anything that moves, it's too choppy. Then you have the 24p. You can choose to have your display on or off if you want to save battery, and you can use this little window here. It's like in the disposable film cameras. I don't know if you're familiar with disposable film cameras. You have this little window to frame the shots. It's pretty old school. Here you have the CF Express card slot. If you move the slider here, you can take out the SD card. I have 500 megabytes SD card that lets you to record, I think, around like 1 hour of footage. So that really put things in perspective. If you think about it, raw photo file from like Canon 5D Mark II is like 40 megabytes. 10 photos from Canon 5D you could fit on this. And when you have like a medium format digital camera like Fujifilm GFX 100 or something, one photo can take from 100 to 200 megabytes. So that's insane if you think about this nowadays. My basic unit of memory I use for the Sony FX30 is like 260 gigabytes. So I went from half of gigabyte to 260 gigabytes in 20 years. So that's something that shows you the progress. Yeah, let's see how my main angle would look like if I would film the vlog with this camera. I will put this camera on this little tripod. I will just place it like this. Okay. Let's see the side-by-side comparison of AIPTEK digital camera versus Sony FX30. 20 years of difference between both cameras. Let's see how it looks. Yeah, I think I managed to frame the shot nicely. It's so much closer. I have a very wide angle lens. I have 30 millimeters on the main angle. That's like 8.7 millimeters, but the sensor is tiny. The sensor is like the nail of a pinky finger. Let's go outside and let's take this bad boy for a spin and do a little B-roll sequence. So let's go. I'm such a mess, 'cause this timepiece is spinning and your snapshot is missing, and I watch you go, because this timepiece is spinning and your snapshot is missing, and I watch you go, Okay guys, I just came back from Camden. It was so much fun testing the camera in the wild. As you probably noticed, those old cameras, they didn't have any sort of stabilization. The footage was very jittery. This shakiness of the footage is a big part of the nostalgia and the vibe of everything. I just want to make an experiment and put this old camera on the gimbal to see how the footage would look like if I could travel back in time and have this more advanced technology. I have this small compact gimbal. I think it's Xeon Crane M2. It's not gonna be battery smooth because first of all, there is no IBIS, there is no any sensor stabilization in this camera. Also because we are not able to film in any higher frame rates like 60 or 120 frames per second. We're not gonna be able to apply any slow motion. I would also like to test how it would be to vlog with it on the gimbal, and I will put it side by side with iPhone. I don't have the latest iPhone, I have iPhone 13 Pro, so it's not even gonna be like comparing with the latest phone, but even my iPhone, which is like 4 years old, gonna completely obliterate the AIPTEK in terms of quality. So it's gonna be nice to see the contrast of how far we went with the consumer technology in like 20 years. So let's do it. So let's see if I'm gonna be able to balance it properly. I should be. The most annoying part is that this camera doesn't have autofocus. The quality is so bad, it's difficult to see if the footage is actually sharp or not. And you have this very simple focusing ring here without any meters, any distance indicators. You just have the infinity and macro. If you are filming a person, like 1.5 meter distance or a 1 meter distance, it's not infinity, but it's not macro, so you need to put it in like somewhere in the middle. If you zoom in and you try to focus, you can see a little bit, but yeah, it's difficult to actually nail the focus, but the quality is so bad that if the focus is at least like in a close proximity, it's fine. I don't think I'm gonna be able to balance it perfectly because it's a little bit awkward weight distribution. However, I think the motors are powerful enough to overcompensate. We make sure we have enough room at the top to be able to do the vertigo shots. All right. It would be so sick to go back in time and be able to bring that gimbal with me and use it when I was filming all those skate videos. I could just like hold it down to the ground and film the tricks up close and stuff. Yeah, I think that would be super cool. It's not very wide angle, so even if I hold it like far away like this, it's gonna be quite narrow frame. Okay, let's see if we can do the vertigo shot. So if I remember correctly, it was double click on the M button, then double click again. And now we are in the vertigo mode and we can film the barrel shots. It's gonna be so cool to see that sort of shot on this old camera. Back in the day, if I could do stuff like that, I would be amazed. Right guys, I'm gonna go outside now and test it out and see you in a bit to see the results. Both cameras are recording, so we are doing a little test of vlogging. It's difficult to frame with AIPTEK because there is no flip out screen. The iPhone is tracking me on the Osmo mobile phone, so that helps a lot. So yeah, this is the audio from the DJI Mic Mini, and this is the audio from AIPTEK camera, the original AIPTEK audio. Okay guys, I'm back now. It was so great to be able to use this old camera on the gimbal. It really brought back a lot of memories for me. It really put things in perspective and reminded me how far we went with the consumer technology over the last 20 years, and really made me appreciate more the equipment I have at my disposal at the moment. Because even if I could travel back in time, not even bringing my main camera like the FX30 or without bringing my MacBook, I would just bring the iPhone. I would be able to make so much better videos. I would be able to edit everything directly on the same device on the phone. The editing process would be so much more smooth and easier. Yeah, and I hope you're gonna appreciate your gear a little bit more after watching this footage. If you would like to experiment, maybe you film high-end videos but you want to have this like effortless, cool behind-the-scenes video, it's great to pick up something like this. I would suggest not to go for like VHS or mini DV cameras because they are more problematic. Sometimes rewinding the tape and recording on the tapes can be broken. It's better to stick to old digital cameras that record to memory cards because that makes the process much easier. The only thing you need to do, you need to use the program called Handbrake to convert the files to more modern format, because usually the modern editing software doesn't recognize those old files. There is a bit better options for that sort of vibe, like Sony Averio, for example. It's old, it's from the same era, but it's like the more high-end camera. But now I think you can get it for like around $100. So in one of the next videos, we're gonna be testing that out, and I will show you how the premium consumer video making experience from that era looked like. This one wasn't like the best at that time. It was just the best I could afford, but it works until today, and I have it for 20 years. I think that definitely deserves some respect. So I will never sell it. I will keep it in my collection. I will put it on the shelf in the most cherished spot in the room, and it will always remind me of how my journey with making videos started. And I'm very happy that I kept it and I never thrown it away, because now it holds a special place in my heart. It's a sentimental piece. It is a funny paradox because it is probably the worst camera that I have, but at the same time it's one of the most important ones. Okay guys, that's gonna be it for today's episode. If you had fun, don't forget to leave the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel because there is more content on the way, and see you in the next one.